There's far too many of you die. You know we've got to bring some love here today. Hey, hey, hey. Father, Father.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. We are
We
back.
don't need to
And
escalate.
I want to welcome everyone to another episode of Blac-Vocracy podcast, featuring metaphors of love for all. This episode 54. Episode 54. And we are talking about the question if a man or women, if they ain't SHIT, sugar, honey, iced tea, then who would they teach? Who they teach? So we're going to definitely get into this evening. I know it's been the past few weeks. We haven't seen what's going on. But we're back now, so we want to get you all another episode because we're coming down to the final 2 episodes of Metaphors of Love. Are we listening before we have to, transition and segue into something even greater that we're working on, both myself and let me bring into my guy, Mr. Tim Jackson. It's my brother from another mother who's been staying down with me from day one. He's one of my day ones. What's up, my guy?
Yeah, I'm your day 1, day 2, day 3. Eternity.
Without question. Without question, my brother. I'm just glad to be able to do this 54th episode, man. We've been hustling and bustling and trying to get to it, and we're finally able to do it. So we want to get into this thing, man, early and quick. We won't hold people long, but we want to be able to get this information out there. So again, we're talking about, I've heard this statement oftentimes mentioned, even as a young boy growing up, right? But I never really heard anyone address it, so to speak. And now we have the opportunity to do it our way because we have the pen right now. So again, I was hearing this term used probably about 3, maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, that men ain't sugar, honey, iced tea. And so it begged me to question, right, that if a man is not sugar, honey, iced tea, then who was the teacher? Did he have a sugar, honey, iced tea teacher? It begs the question, right? And so, I think people a lot of time, bring in their own personal situations and so forth to try to put a label on someone, stigmatize someone with this particular language, but never seem to pause for a second and take a real, look at themselves, evaluate their own indifferences. And this is the issue I think we've been facing, man, for a very long time, using this type of language. And isn't it interesting? The very individuals who make these statements, because again, I'm not being all inclusive, that all women make this statement. Not all women make this statement. So let me emphasize that. Not all women, but we hear enough, and we've heard it even sometime as a little boy growing up, perhaps. You maybe had that kind of mother with that tough exterior. And she might have seen you doing something that she didn't agree with. And she might have yelled out, "You ain't SHIT, you ain't sugar, honey, iced tea," right? And you hear a lot of this coming from women more so than men. So I wanted to visit that because I think it's very important, very necessary, and we have to push back this narrative, because I'm fond of oftentimes saying that if you don't have if you met an individual and you laid down with that individual, there's a possibility that you just laid down with the wrong individual. Basically, what that what that boils down to, you just happen to lay down with the wrong individual. So again, we're going to get into that this evening, but let me set the tables, as I like to say, by reading something pertaining to this subject matter, because I had no idea that it had gotten this bad. And I tell you, I know it's one of those things we talk about it, and again, it's like we're leading the way in just about everything. But it is what it is, and we got to talk about it. They talked about that it was found that a majority of the 73.7 million, 73.7 million American children under the age of 18, listen to this, under the age of 18 live with a two-parent home. Now that's just we're talking about in America, right? Live in a two-parent home. A decrease from 88% in 1960. Well, it was a 69%. Let me say that 69% decrease from 88% since 1960. Of those 50.7 million, 50.7 million children living in families with two-parent homes, 47.7 million live with two parents, and 3 million live with two unmarried parents. Very low number. We're talking 1960. Now, we talk about breaking it down by race. Let's break this thing down by race. If it's broken down by race, they say that the statistics show stark differences. Stark differences. The percentage of white children under 18 who live with both parents almost doubles that of black children. Yeah. The percentage of white children under 18 who live with both parents almost doubles that of black children. What's going on? So according to the data, while 74.3% of all white children below the age of 18 live with both parents, only 38.7% of African American minors can say the same. Did you hear what I just said, my brother? Did you hear what I just said? 74% of all white children below the age of 18 both live with their parents, with both parents, while 38.7% of African American children can say the same. That's how bad it's gotten. So instead of more than 1/3 of all black children in the United States under the age of 18, they're saying they live under 18 now, live with unmarried mothers, single parents. That is more than a third of black children in the United States. Now, compared to 6.5% of white children. Compared to 6.5% of white children. The figures reflect a general trend. Now, when we think about this general trend, let's check this out. Let's do the data, right? During the 1960s and 2016, that's a long time. 1960 all the way up to 2016 period, the percentage of children living with only their mother nearly tripled from 8 to 23%. From 8 to 23%. And the percentage of children living with only their father increased from 1 to 4%. So what this data is showing is that the mothers are the one who are raising children, single mother homes, right? And you've heard me say so many times that 75 to 85% of all African American households are being led or ran by African American women. 75 to 85%. Now they're showing you the data, the demographics, based upon what's happening within our community regarding our children, our youth. That is a wide disproportion between young black children and young white children being raised in a two-parent home. These are the social scientists. The social scientists have long expanded or expounded upon the benefits for children who live in two-parent homes, and we know about that, including economics, educational, health, and other advantages. So this thing is serious. You know, a lot of things. I want to welcome people that are still coming on to. We're only doing. Let me just pause for just a second. We're only doing Facebook this evening as well as YouTube Live. We're not doing Instagram Live. So I just wanted to come on and talk about episode 54. We are talking about if men If this language that I often hear coming from black women, if men ain't sugar honey iced tea, you figure that out. If men are not sugar honey iced tea, then what do that make the teacher? The data is showing that most the children are being raised by in a single parent home by the mom. That's what the data is saying. These are staggering numbers. We're talking about 74.3% of white children being raised in a two-parent home versus 38.7%. So those are the numbers. Those are the numbers. And you can't refute the numbers because the numbers don't lie. So again, let me be perfectly clear. I am not talking about all black women. All black women do not use this language. In fact, I've never heard my mother ever, I'm saying I haven't heard it. Whether she used it or not, I've never heard it. Ever call my father and my siblings' fathers men who wasn't sugar honey iced tea. But yet there are some, not all, some black women who use this language or prefer to use this language. And here's another key thing, Tim. I asked this question: if that is the case, then is your son that you're raising or have raised, is he the exception to that rule? See, that's something that they don't want to really, confront. You call this man because you had a personal bad experience, right? You did. Not the whole entire African American community. No, this was your selection. So you had a bad experience. But that same young male that you raised or raising, did you ever say, consider that he wasn't SHIT, sugar honey iced tea? Or is yours or the exception? Is he the exception to the rule? This is the question, Tim. This is what we're talking about this evening. Again, I want to welcome, I'll get to the comments in just a second. We're just laying the predicate and establishing the platform for tonight's episode. We're speaking about when black women, not all, some that say that men is not sugar honey iced tea. And we want to know the question. Well, if that's the case, well, what do that make the teacher? Because it seems like the women are raising the children, especially in the African American community. So, Tim, I know you had a couple of things in regarding to an experience that you had, and I wanted you to talk about that a little bit as we continue to dive more into this particular topic this evening.
Well, just to kind of give you, just to add on to that, the success rate of black two-parent households is 73% greater for versus one-parent household. So female-led households are 50% less, or actually more likely to be poor versus a two-parent household. And if it's a male household, it's 67%. It's almost the same. And so when we look back and reflect, and I know of experience as well too, where I know someone very dear and close, who did things, who actually disguised things in a very, very sweet manner, very sweet person, and wanted to have a child, and they had a child. They wanted child support. They got your child support, but they made it very, very difficult for that parent, which was the father in this case, could be either or, but in this case, it's the father, and this is what we're talking about, to actually see the child. Gave all kind of things that would make it more difficult, besides distance and all kind of things, and even said that to be around the father's area was dangerous. So they tried to push the child away, but the child still wanted to be where the father was, and yet still the child was denied with all kind of different reasons why the child couldn't go, until the child got in trouble. And then it was a late date because the child was 17 years old, 16 years old at that time. And that was way too long for that child to actually recover from all the damage of feeling lack. See, because when a son or daughter, when they're away from one of the parents, they feel lack. They lack the other parent. And if they don't have another mentor that actually they buy into, then they're going to continue to have that lack. Most of the time, it don't really matter. They're going to feel that lack anyway. And if one parent says to that child about the other parent that actually that person is not worthy or anything, like you said, ain't SHIT, how you described it,
right?
Ain't that? that child feels that themselves, and they take it on themselves. So they take the brunt of that hurt and pain. You hurt that child when you do that. Whenever you talk about the other parent, because that's what we here for correction. You know, correction is protection, equals protection. And I'll dive into why correction equals protection, especially when it's wrapped around wisdom, right? So we're here for that. That's what we're here to do. Correct so we can protect, so you can have the right discernment to actually not do these things again. Because we are hurting our children, and especially in this case, this child actually went down the wrong road, ended up getting in trouble, changed his whole path, had a different vision, wish they had another vision because of the pain that they had within them and all the conflicting interest that was going on. They knew of that other parents as something different, as someone they cared about, but yet that child was denied that. So it's amazing that a person, now I'm gonna tell you, this person loved their child. The woman loved the child. They wanted the best for their child, but they wanted to do it by themselves more than anything else. Because everything they did in disguise. It wasn't like it was like, oh no, da da da. But hey, all that energy. You know what we do? We manifest things. If you tell a child that it's dangerous to be around their father, that the surrounding area is dangerous, that child is not gonna, you manifesting that life is dangerous. So that child doesn't want to be around that parent with that situation. Then they find out something different. Wow. That
You saying
is
that
really tough.
Yeah, you saying
Yeah, go ahead.
if they find out something different. Now, I don't mean to cut you. I just want you to finish. I want to get some clarity on that because there's a little bit of static. But I wanted to make sure that your last point that you were saying that you can go ahead and repeat that again. I want to make sure
Yeah.
we get.
Okay. Yeah, I'm saying that besides hurting a child,
right.
when a child finds out that actually not true, the information is not true, you
Right.
you take that child aback, and
Right.
they doubt the parent, and they also doubt themselves and where they should go, and they move forward, and then they have regrets.
Right.
Because the person was telling
Yeah,
me a
absolutely.
story about how the child regretted not doing certain actions, not going and doing certain things, because the mother had created a safe haven for the child to not deal with conflict. And I like to say, they call this the butterfly effect. A caterpillar has to struggle to get out of that cocoon. And if it doesn't struggle to get out of the cocoon, it never develop its wings. And if you cut that hole out, give it some to relieve the pressure, and say, "Hey, it's okay. You're gonna be all right. I'm gonna cuddle. I'm gonna hug you." Well, the father's gonna say, "Hey, no, it's time for you to fight. It's time for you to struggle. It's time for you to go against. No matter how tough it is, you keep on going until you break through. And then if we need to find you something else, we'll go to that. But you're gonna finish what you start." So they were telling me that the child was quitting on different things and moving to the next thing, being cuddled by the parent. Well, the father wouldn't allow that. And then when the father actually did do that, it was too late, because then the child rebelled. So now we're talking about a child that's totally different, a beautiful spirit that's now been lost in parents thinking I can do everything by myself, thinking independence is a way when it's not.
When it's not. Well, you know what, something, man, I can totally concur with what you just stated in regards to that the last statement. Oftentimes women fall into this trap situation where they think that, I guess, part of especially when it comes to boys, little boys, that's kind of like a way to get some get back when they've gone through whatever the situation, the relationship wind up being. It's kind of like they have this disposition, man, this hurtful disposition where they want to hurt back. And we've heard this statement when it says that hurt people hurt people. And that's one of the things. And they use the children a whole lot of times as like pawns on a chessboard, right? I was listening to a young man. He was talking about this was several weeks back. He was talking about his mom had kept him from his father, right? She kept him from his father. And over the years, I mean, we talking about he had been like in his late 20s now. So he made a effort to go see his biological father. When he finally had a chance to meet him face to face, spend some time with him, talk to him the whole 9 yards, he got the full story that his father had been looking for him, And the mom had ran off and did whatever and took him away from the father. And so he grew up without his father, right? Fast forward, she called him on the phone, asked him where he was at. He answered the phone. I don't know if some of y'all saw this or not, but they had it going around on social media. He answered the phone. She asked him where he was at. He said, I'm over here with my dad. And she was like, your dad? Yes, my biological father. Man, he started talking about how she went off. I told you not to never call him. Da 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 da. Just went off, right? He said, listen, you're not talking to a young kid anymore. And he had started, he grew to despise his mom because everything that she told him was a complete lie. And so the father snatched the phone, said, let me talk to her. And he goes off. You took my son from me, da 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 da. He had the receipts, kept the receipts the whole 9 yards, right? All of that time, that gap within that relationship that has been missed. And he talked about some of the troubles that he had gotten into as a young kid, right? Just like the other two individuals, I follow these two brothers who was talking about how their father was the disciplinary in the household before their father and mother had divorced. And he was saying that he'd never forget when his mom thought that his father was being too hard on them, discipline wise, right? He said, okay, I tell you what, when they grow up, don't call me. Sure enough, he said both he and his brother went to prison. He said they got into most stuff, man, ever. He's a grown man now, probably was in his 40s or 50s. He said that was one, and he said he remembered that like a kid from yesterday. He said that was one of the biggest mistakes, man, that could have ever been made on him and his brother's life. Taking a father out of the household, or at least keeping, it's one thing when you decide, when two adults decide to go ahead and go their separate ways. But when you start playing with the child, that's when it goes all the way off. Now I gotta come in from, I gotta shout this person now. It's been a minute. I'm glad she's catching these last 2 episodes. My friend Miss Lolita Allen. Good evening to you, Miss Allen. She talks about this doesn't include me, but I'm listening to tonight's commentary. So we definitely glad to have you back. We're glad to be back. I know we missed the last 3 weeks, but I'm glad to have your commentary. I'm also looking at my cousin. He's on here with me this season. My man, Galen Wade Swade. He says, let me see what he says up here. He says, we need some women on this show that kept the kid from the father. You're right about that, kinfolk. You're absolutely right about that. In fact, I want to read. Hold on for a second. Let me try to pull this up right quick because I got this interesting text, and I'm not gonna say the individual's name, anything like that. But it was interesting when I thought about doing the topic of this show, and so they was trying to prevent me from going in this space, so to speak. But you know me, I'm a maverick. I'm a nonconformist. I'm gonna talk about what need to be talked about, not what makes you feel good, because this is a subject matter where I don't know how many of y'all heard the whole entire statistics that I just read in terms of a 2-parent household versus a one parent household. But these numbers are staggering. We talked about 74.3% of white children have coming from a 2-parent home versus 38.7%. And we wonder why. So, I think these conversations need to be had because all men, just like all women, don't think this way. And all men are not what you think they are. You just laid down with the wrong man. You just laid down with the wrong man. So that's what we got to bring some clarity to. Go ahead, Tim. Let me bring this up right quick because I want to share this with the platform this evening. You can go ahead, Tim, if you can hear me. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can definitely hear you. So, I'm reflecting on this, and I'm thinking about, why we're here. Like I talked about it a little bit earlier, we talked about we're here to actually help us. When you reflect on this, we have to change this in our community because we have too many times where we're talking about independence. There's really no such thing as independence. And then when we go into independence, we start raising our children in independence. And we're doing a disservice to our children, our mothers and fathers. I'm going to include me on this part right here. The wonderful thing I have with my children's mother, she understands the things I just said. We are all inclusive for raising our children. We're not together, but we're all inclusive in raising our children. And she actually exalts how I raise. We communicate different things. And when something comes up, we talk to each other. I exalt her to the children as well. And so both our children look together. And I'll tell you, the children actually would like us together because it's like, why not two beautiful people, why they're together? But we're just not meant to be together. Okay. But we
Right.
are together in raising our children. And we do a strong amount of help, and she applauds because I'm so entwined with my children, especially with me, that she said you just give them so much attention and love, right? But they also get correction, because one thing that a man does more than anything else, he has to give correction. And my correction is not loud. My correction is firm. It's done with love and communication and understanding of why you're being corrected and why you have to change it and why we don't do that and what the have that communication. And so this is what is needed in our household. We have to be able to, even if the households are not together, have to communicate our children, and we have to lift up our children together. Got to be unity. And when there's a difference, we do some things. Men are do some things differently, but we actually work on what's the best interest of the children to raise them to actually, so they'll have a positive outside mindset, that actually they'll manifest beautiful things in their life and see beautiful things because they see beautiful things coming from their parents. Now, we got to stop all this individualism, because we don't operate on individual basis. We operate on interdependent basis. I don't care how unique you think you are by yourself. Ain't nothing by yourself. We depend on everybody. So it's interdependent. We're not dependent on everybody, but there's some interdependence with everything that we do. If you go into business, you go to work, you're interdependent with the person you work for. You got a boss, you got employees that work up under you. If you have employees up under you, you got co-workers, y'all all working together. The same thing with a family. We can't forget understanding what happens with unity. Unity, when you have unity, you have a team. When you have a team and it works well together, it's successful, and it actually exceeds and has excellence. But when you have people who don't work together, it fails. So why aren't we working harder to work together to make sure our family fails when we work real hard for our jobs to make sure they're successful, and you're doing it for a lot of time for somebody else, because the majority of people are employed. So most of the time you helping this man actually increase his numbers, and you can't do that for your own household. Man, we can't keep going like this. Black families, we can't do this.
Yeah, I think the dominant thing, man, I was reading this thing because when we talk about the social sciences of this thing, it goes so deep, right? The social sciences. When it talks about the XX chromosome, XY chromosome, and that everything starts out female, right? But you get more dominant genes from the mother than you do from the father. Well, not dominant. Let me say not dominant. You just get more genes. Let me say that you get more genes because uh I think they call it, I don't know if I'm messing it up or butchering it, the medical term for it, but it's called mitochondria. The female produces this from the XX chromosome, but the male can't produce it. If a male was to produce this, what they call mitochondria, it messes everything up chemically, right? So, and I think that's kind of like, I'm not exactly 100% sure, but I know when they talk about people who are hermaphrodites, they have a chemical imbalance, that kind of thing. And that what, when I was studying this about mitochondria, that's what it kind of led me to think about, because I heard that for years now, as far as people that are born with the two genital parts or whatever. But having said that, there is a tendency for when the child is born and the mother takes the child, and we understand the nurturing aspect of it because the man has the role to play and the woman has the role to play. We know she's the nurturer, she's the caregiver, she's the one who's really the first educator, developing the child, right? Doing all these things. But then there comes a time when you have to get him off the breast. You have to get him off the breast. And a lot of times, mothers don't want to let go. They don't want to let go. And herein lies the problem a lot of time. So, we got to keep those things in mind. Yes, that's your baby. It's kind of like you don't want to cut the umbilical cord, but every doctor has to cut the umbilical cord. Understand that there's a such thing as a spiritual umbilical cord, where it attaches the mother to the child until the child either transition before the mother or the mother transition before the child. When a mother gives birth to that child, you go through all that toil, that travail, that pain, that struggle. But as soon as she gives birth to that child, it breaks free to joy. So that's the struggle, and that's one of that memory thing. And I think why women have a tendency to hold on so strong to this child, Some women, not all, right? Because some women know when to let go and let that child attach themselves with that Y chromosome, because the male has the dominant chromosome. He don't have more genes than the XX chromosome, but he has more dominant chromosomes. Okay. And so when it's like that, especially with boys, you got to turn them over. This is a very long known tradition that we've always held high within even if we can say African American community, we know it was on the continent of Africa. So we understand how men took the young child when he was 10 years old. He took the boy and turned him into a man. And so we have to make sure that we don't forget those things, because over here, for some odd reason, it seems as though we've grown amnesia to a lot of the customs and traditions that we've had in Africa. And these things can still be taught. It's not like, okay, well, I'm not from over there and I don't know. No. The world is like one small couch right now. One small couch. And you can Google whatever you want. They got ancestral.com. You can find out what was our traditions. Because unfortunately for us, we've assimilated. And assimilation simply means that we're taking on somebody else's culture, somebody else's name, religion, and so forth and so on. This is what we've done in the United States. We have assimilated. And then one of the very reasons why we still suffer from identity crisis, many of us, still trying to figure out our identity. That's why we don't develop ourselves with more standards than the way we should. I was watching a video earlier. I don't even forget the rap girl's name, and I could not believe this individual was on the red carpet crawling as though they was an animal licking out their tongue. I said, that's not a human being. That's not a Homo sapien. I said, that's animalistic behavior. Cats and dogs lower out their tongue, was actually on the ground crawling while the media paparazzi was taking pictures in the whole 9 yards. I said, wow. And this was a black woman. And I say, how some black women have devalued themselves. And I'm so proud to say not all black women, because there are some things I've seen where I was really happy and filled with joy when I saw some of these black women, African American women, pushing this narrative back. It's so much more they have to deal with. Now they got to clean up, the mess that some of these reprobated mind type women, how they think. It's like you got white carpet in your house and you just vacuum the house, and somebody come in the house running in the house with mud on their feet underneath their shoes. The track mud all over your carpet. It don't make you feel like a happy camper. And that's what has happened to the African American community in a lot of ways, because you don't see Arab women, you don't see Asian women, and I will continue to say you don't see Indian women who are doing the things that we see some black women doing. And those are just the fact. The numbers don't lie. I deal with the numbers because I know the numbers. Everybody gets a number. I always say this. Everybody gets a number. We come in this life with a number, and we're going to exit this life with a number. Mathematics is you just can't dispute what mathematics is. Okay, so it's no use in arguing and fighting, fussing with the numbers. The numbers are the numbers. I just read them to you. They've taken a consensus, and like I say, there's a way to prove these things that we're talking about this evening. For those of you who are just coming on and joining us, this is another episode of Metaphors of Love, where we list on the podcast Blac-Vocracy, and we're talking about on episode 54. We're talking about if you use the language that men are not sugar, honey, iced tea. You can, like I say, break that down how you want to. If men are not sugar, honey, iced tea, then who's the teacher? And what do that make the teacher? Since they're saying that, and let me see if I can bring that up again in terms of the percentage of how many young black, when you break the numbers down, for those of you who are just joining, I'll go back and repeat these numbers. Again, they talked about when this thing is broken down by race, they say that the statistics show stark differences. The percentage of white children under 18 who live with both parents almost doubles that of black children. While 74.3% of all white children below the age of 18 live with both parents, only 38.7% of African American minors can say the same. So they can't even equate to that. And so the largest majority is going with the mom. But yet and still, we think this is no big deal. I couldn't get to the text that I received. I'm just going to try to remember some of the things verbatim, because one individual who texted me, they were saying, oh, why you want to talk about that? Why you want to use that topic? Shouldn't we be talking about how there are not men out there because of mass incarceration, and how they're not, in the house where it should be two-parent house. Yes, I agree with that. As regarding mass incarceration, regarding that, there's too many single women, right? I agree with all that narrative. But at the same time, there are so many different layers of this that we have to contend with, that we just can't gloss over this. We can't gloss over the fact that you get into your emotional feelings, and then you go out there and do something detrimental not only to yourself, to be able to have an amicable relationship with the father of your child, but then you deny the child. You deny the child, and that doesn't make sense either. It's just like, and I can flip it back on the guys, because you don't like the fact that it didn't work out. Now you detach yourself from the woman, and you don't want to take care of your own children, your own flesh and blood. I've always said, I've always been committed to my children. I always said, no matter what happened in any of my relationships, I'm gonna make for sure, as God is my witness, that I'm gonna have a connection with my child. I'm gonna do that, and ain't nobody gonna take that from me. Ain't nobody gonna tell me how to parent my children. It's another thing. I think if men, stepped up and took a more dominant role, I think we can push back some of that narrative. That's why, agencies like CPS steps in and doing these, because the child is doing certain things at an adolescent stage that we know that, there are some things that we did. There are some things that took in, or whatever case may be. But today's level of what's going on, it's just, I think it's just, the numbers are just astronomical, and it's gotten way, way, way out of hand in terms of the moral compass and what we value the most, and what we're living, looking at, and what we're having to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So yes, we're talking about it this evening. We got to push this narrative back, and I'm hoping that on this episode right here, we do this particular type of justice, because at the end of the day, what I hope happens is that women will consider, before you say that, as Tim was talking about earlier, especially using this kind of language in front of that child, that you will remove your emotions out of the equation, that you will remove your emotions out of the equation and think about the child themselves. Because what impression are you making on the child, and what picture are you painting in front of that child to conceive about their biological father? That's the question. That's the question, Tim.
That is the question. And what's strong about that is this: is that women, and we talk about the women, they teach their children how to be adults, right? They teach them into adulthood. But that good man teaches his daughter how to be a lady and how to be respected. And that
Right.
man teaches his son how to be a gentleman, or we'll just how to be sweet to women, be nice and respectful, to demand respect, be respectful, and discipline to both of them. See, men teach that women have discipline. They're not saying that, but men teach it a different way. So how many people out here, and the sad part about it, so many of these women have not been in two-family household, so they really don't even understand what it's like to be in a household with a man. So that's part of the problem right there. But for those who have been in one, how many times you see a mother would turn to their father, and their father would say things in a quiet way, and that child would straighten up really quick? The energy is different from a man.
Mm-hmm.
And so that man who teaches that because he teaches this, self-discipline begins with the mastery of your thoughts. And so if you don't control what you think, you can't control what you do. And so that's the first beginning of self-control, and actually have a man that actually discipline, who makes sure he gets away from a situation. So this is also important for men who don't make sure they stay away from a woman who doesn't have the right attitude. So you don't end up with a child with them who doesn't really want you in their life, who actually, as soon as they get mad, they're gonna get emotional and take you out of their life. So men, we have accountability too. Make sure we're not having children with women who don't really care about the welfare of the children. They care more about their own personal emotions and where they are and how they doing, and not necessarily children. I can do all things by myself, and I don't need no man type of attitude. That is detrimental to a child, because a child needs both parents. It
Yeah, on
definitely,
all levels. On
yeah,
all levels.
so many
Yeah, I
different.
agree. On all levels. On all levels, because God rest in peace to the great Kobe Bryant. But when he coined the term, I'm a girl's dad, I thought that was so monumental in what he was saying, because again, there's this thing about how we as men we enjoy attaching ourselves to our sons, right? But something that you just stated regarding the girls too, right? I think a lot of that is deep pain, deep social pain, where when the father wasn't there, they didn't know how to really deal with a man themselves. So certain things that you don't have the words, the proper words to pull out of your own vocabulary to best describe what your situation is. I think there's a lot of times when we just revert to using any type of language in hopes that it'll make us feel even better about ourselves. When actually, in actual reality, what you're really saying is that you still feel the pain and the suffering from not having your biological father there, who could have taught you better, or at least given you education as it relates to men, how men think. I think that's so important, man. So you hit on something right there, Tim. And I think that's another thing we need to develop into nice conversation, because that's so important, man. Women have to, and I'm talking about the mothers now who may be raising single daughters,
Mm-hmm.
somehow find a way to keep that connection. Yeah, keep that connection, and allow that man, the biological father. Now it's a whole nother subject. We're not talking about the ones who don't. We're talking about the ones who do. And there's a whole nother subject that we could talk about for the ones who don't. But I'm talking about the ones who want to, the ones who have tried, the ones who have tried to call, the one who's tried to reach out, the one who has gone to your old address and you done moved, who've been looking for their child. We're talking about those men, those individuals. And those are the ones that we have to, man. It's imperative that we have to be able to allow these individuals to be connected with their child. Women have to be able to do that, and set aside whatever it is that they're fitting towards that man. Because I remind I'm always talking about this. I even wrote about it. When I was young. I was 18 years old, 18 years of age, and I was just leaving home. Leaving home for the first time to go off to college to play ball and everything. And in the midst of all of that, I got a little homesick, and I thought about, what? I'm gonna do something different, man. I want to do something different. I'm not gonna go back to college, so I'm gonna go ahead. I broke camp because I wasn't used to 3-a-day practice. First of all, we was having 3-a-days, and I was used to 2-a-day. Long story short, my mother put a call into my father. Unbeknownst to me, I had no idea that she had called this man. And I was at the house one day, one summer, for about, I guess it was almost a week, not quite, maybe 4 or 5 days. And I just seen somebody walk by the front of the window of the house, and heard a knock at the door. When I asked who is it, he pronounced his name. I knew it was my dad. And we had to sit down and had a conversation. And some of the things that he said, the wisdom that he gave to me, still rings true for me today. And sometimes I look back on those things, right? Because they help shape the man that I am today. So that's how I know how important it is, man, to have a man in present. Because I don't think if it was just left up to my mom at that time, she probably couldn't have did that. She probably didn't know the things to say to
Mm-hmm.
me to get me to go back to school and continue my career playing ball. So definitely, man, and we can't take that for granted. So again, I push the narrative back when I hear women say, "Oh, men ain't shit." Well, when you say that, then make sure that you sort that out, because just like we can say the same thing with women, all women are not bad. All women do make good decisions. All women do don't run down to white daddy or white uncle or whatever you want to say and try to put the white man on the black man. Some women, they get it. They get it. They're not going, this is my child's father. Some women get that. But then there are so many today that I recognize that don't get that. And they keep trying to push this narrative, man. And I had to do this, like I say, this particular platform this evening, because I get tired of hearing that, brother. I get tired of hearing that men ain't this, men ain't that. No, that's just the man you laid with. You chose to lay with. Because you got some brothers out there handle their business through rain, sleet, or snow, bro. They coming for their child. They coming for their child. And I know you one of them, because you pick yours up, man, going back and forth to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and so forth. And I know many, many of them out there, man. My cousin is on here this evening, so I know he handles his business. There are so many great men, responsible men are taking care of their business, but they don't oftentimes want to show that, right? They always want to show the black man in this negative light, like they do with black women sometimes. So don't get it twisted. I know some of this propaganda is exactly what it is, propaganda, and a lot of times that information is skewed or slanted. But you'll push some black female crawling on the ground as if she's some damn tiger or animal or whatever, but not the excellent woman who's going and got her doctorate and everything else. You won't really push that narrative, but you'll parade that woman around the world as if that's the best that represents our community. That's not the best that represents our community. That's the narrative that you want to project onto other people's minds. But that's what I'm saying. You can't say one bad word about a Jewish woman without being called anti-Semitic, because they gonna come for you. Them Jews, they gonna come for you. And I think far too long we sat back and allowed this narrative to continue, man, and we get desensitized. See, I was talking about it, just earlier. I said, if there was a time when women begged for a man with sensitivity. It begged so much that Ralph Tresvant had to do a song about it. He had to do a song about it, called it sensitivity. Now what has happened, you see it so many times over and over, to now we've become desensitized. And that's the trick bag they want to put us in. No, what do the scriptures say when they ask Jesus himself? How many times do you forgive a person? Many times over. Ain't no quitting until the day we get in that dirt, man. Ain't no quitting. So every time I see it, yeah, I don't go along to get along. I don't go along to get along. If I see something, man, that's not up, it's subpar, it's not up to standard, and it's not what best represent us, yes, I'm gonna have my views about it. Yes, I'm gonna have some pushback, especially if it doesn't line up. Especially it doesn't line up with first and foremost how we was created in the most excellent mode, or out of the most excellent mode. And if it's something where it's a conflict between the world today and all of its theology, man, I can't get with nothing in America really, because there's no moral compass anyway. It's like everybody's there to do what the hell they want to do. There's no checks and balances anymore. So why would I sit back and let you tell me, like what you're saying is so correct, right? And you think that you're so right that I'm gonna let you get that off and not say anything. No, that's not the way it works, brother. That's not the way it works. So we got to talk about subjects like this, man. We have to have these conversations. And if it's only me talking about it, screaming into the mountain, I'll be like John the Baptist when, crying in the wilderness, man. I'm not gonna accept this. I'm not going to accept it, because that's not who we are. That does not best represent us. It doesn't best represent us. And these numbers, I just looked this up today. I want y'all to know that Facebook, YouTube. I just looked this up today regarding what the numbers were. I knew they was high, but I had no idea. You're talking 74.3% versus 38.7%. Come on. Yes. So the person that DM me, text me, or whatever the case may be, I do agree regarding mass incarceration and what all that is about. Trust me, I know that firsthand of what that is all about. And at the same time, I know that brothers get out all the time and still try to reconnect back with their children, but because the mother have moved on, or she's in her state of ethereal happiness, she don't want the child to reconnect with his biological father who want to. And then you get these old insecure brothers. I call them insecure. I would never, knowing that I didn't father a child, deny this child to have his rights with his biological father. I couldn't do that. I couldn't. I know some weak brothers that do that. Now, I am not talking about the man who don't want to have no interest in his child. If he give up his parenting rights because they don't make you a father because you was able to, to spew something out of your body, out of your loins. No, I'm not talking about that individual. So if you didn't want nothing to do with the child, and this man invested in that child and raised that child, I'm not talking about that brother. That man has some right because he helped raise your child that you didn't give a hoot about. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the brother who wants to reconnect with his child. He wants to reconnect with his child. And I saw this on a video that was going around. Man brought all the gifts in his car and everything to his child. This man telling him he couldn't see his child. Brother, that's the day either God. I'm gonna tell you something about that. I don't know if you're gonna go to heaven or hell, but I'm gonna get you close to the doorbell. If you trying to deny me about mine, I don't know if it's gonna be heaven or hell, but I'm gonna get you close to the doorbell. Because I don't play when it comes to mine. Just like I respect any brother who don't play with his. So you can't tell another man that's not your seed, man. That's not your seed. And you going and you that weak minded or weak hearted, are you that insecure? That's not your seed. So again, man, I can go on and on. I'm gonna come back to you, my brother, because it's like one of these. This is a sensitive subject, man, for a lot of brothers. Not just me. I'm talking about when I do certain things because I got my ear. I'm listening to what people are saying. I'm listening to the brothers. I'm listening to the sisters. So we have to have these conversations, and that's real. That's real, Tim.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of pain in our community. You hit that nail on the head. It's a lot of pain in our community. You think about this. 63% higher. It's a 63 higher percentage that Black male ran household is actually more successful than a Black female ran household. 63% more. You know, so and it's 73. For two parents. So how close is that? So this narrative got to change. We can't continue to keep going down this road. And like you said from the beginning, and which is true, women are dominating, Black women especially, dominating, leading the household, single family household, and raising these children, and you complaining about the men that are being raised, who's raising the children? So
right.
That's why we are here today, to talk about things we can do to make it better. But we got to come clean. So before you can fix something, you got to actually realize something. You got to know what the truth is. So then you can actually work on it, and you can break it down and then work it on the parts that actually need to be fixed. And one of the things that need to fix is a narrative. Hey, I can do this all by myself, because what's happening, you don't like the men that you end up raising. Women don't like the men they raising. They complaining about them like crazy. When men ain't, they saying the men ain't SHIT. Who's saying that? Women are, right? And they don't want
most women.
So you raising most of these kids, these men that you don't like. What's wrong with that narrative? So there's something that has to be done different in our community. And we got to understand this, male and female. Our children need discipline. And we talked about discipline before, what it is. But I know of too many people who got money, okay, miserable, who actually showing success that are miserable and all that kind of stuff. I know people who actually with the right mindset, live in a 1 and 2 bedroom household, but their mindset right, their spiritual connection is right? They understand and they value what a family is. They value what it is to actually breathe life into, and they manifest what's best for their children by actually having positive things. If you say to the world, I'm independent, I don't need something, you telling your child he don't need something, he goes and lack. So now your child lacks something, and he notices that he's lacking because he knows that's not true, because that's not how the universe works. The universe works in unity. So you tell a child you don't need something, now that child is lacking that, and they go without, and then they have this emptiness inside of them. They have this pain. So now that's why all of a sudden now we have more suicide in our community than we ever had before. These are all things that are pain. So all this pain is just building up. And so now our women are doing more suicide. Our men are having more suicide. We didn't have that. That wasn't part of our deal, because we was actually a family. Because now loneliness has come apart. Not just being alone. Alone is one thing. You can be alone and then you can reconnect. So we're not talking about being alone. We're talking about loneliness. Loneliness actually creates this, where you feel like no one is there for you. And so that's why you have to connect. We have to connect to our environment, connect to people. And women, we got to connect to our men. And men, we got to be men, so we actually can raise our families, that we can actually get over the mistakes and understand, hey, everybody's not perfect, but we're perfectly imperfect. Let's work on that, come together, and figure out ways we can actually raise our children in a manner that actually they are exalted and they feel good about themselves, and you feel good about them, so they can make an excellent match for a woman.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like what Donna said. Donna stated that our children need both parents in the story. I agree with that. Concur with that wholeheartedly. Absolutely. That's why I say when we talk about 38.7%. 38.7%. And so we know and we understand, again, let me say that, some relationships work out and some don't. But marriage or being married doesn't sound like parenting. And I'm just simply saying, because if the marriage expires and two people decide to go their separate ways, the parenting don't stop. It don't stop. I believe that's from the cradle until the grave. It does not stop. It doesn't stop, man. And I'm telling you, we got to, again, when Kobe Bryant coined that term, girl dad, I thought it did wonders, man, for the heart, because I know the impact that fathers can make on daughters. We got to get more involved, and I'm talking to all the guys that are out there. If you do have daughters, ask them certain questions. Like my daughter and I, she's 24, going around to be 25, and I'm glad. And I don't take all the credit for it, because the type of mother that she has, the example that she set, because she's never. And I can and I know I'm solid when I say this. She have never said I wasn't a man. That's one thing about it. We may not it was like two shifts. We was young, but two shifts, passing by as we became older, whatever. But we never stopped parenting. That was the thing. And I never disrespected her. She never disrespected me. And still to this day, we have an amicable relationship. Right. So my daughter grew up understanding her father. We just rolled back from out of town in the car together, laugh and we have such a wonderful time. You know what I mean? And so I made that impact, because that foundation that was being laid, she never forgot about it. She don't go up doing stuff like this here, man. She don't have this in her. Never have. Getting out of the car, doing this right here. This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. This don't move mountains. This don't bring out this doesn't contribute to our community, bring out the best in our community. I'm questioning, where is the father? That's where my mind is, because even if the mother has relegated a little bit of that, because maybe if she's single, she's having to work, 2 jobs or whatever, came under the situation, whatever. I'm wondering where the father. Because I don't care, and I tell my children, I don't care if I'm 80, 90 years old, and until God takes the soul out of my body, I'm gonna parent, even if I gotta knock you out with a cane or whatever I gotta do. Because if I saw my daughter on Broadway Street on display doing her behavior doing that, it's gonna be a problem. It's gonna be a problem. So all this stuff talking about, you can't, because I've had these conversations. I'm not just talking about with women, actually with men. And we were sitting around, just guys. I mean, let me let the women in on some of the conversations that the guys have, because I'm telling you, got some guys who are stuck on stupid too. Because we sitting around talking to guys, and we sitting there talking. I'm saying, wait a minute. Just because you choose to stop parenting, brother, that ain't all men. Oh, what can you tell them, man? They grown now, this, then. I said, you know what? Yes, when they get grown, they have their own lives to live and so forth and all that. But you know what? I'm like Ike Turner said in the movie. The name still got my daddy blood on it. Now, if you want to go out there and be a fool and that crazy, all that, can see my last name has a meaning to it. It means one who has right conduct, integrity, and who's rightly guided. And I worked on that. God gave me that. And I live by that code. So if you want to do something crazy, then kindly go get back the white man name. Go get his name. Go get Chicken George and all that and all that. See, Kuta Kinte didn't want to change his name. Go get Kizzy. Go get all them names. But don't tell me my name has meaning and excellence, and you're going to try to tell me I got to stop parenting because you chose to give up in life, because you chose to get out of the race of parenting or parenthood. That's your decision. That's your decision. But when it comes to mine, no, brother, we're going to ride this ship all the way until God call my soul back. So no, I'm not going to have my daughter nor my son, because I don't have no cut cards. Mine's across the board. The same thing I have for my son, I have for my daughter, and vice versa. If you go out there and you put yourself out there and you got a bag on your head, jumping out of the car like you lost your mind, we going to have a problem. And I mean that. And I'm not going to stop parenting because somebody write up the way they want to and think that I should. Don't work that way with me, Brother Tim. It don't work that way with me. I'm going to put my boy, Ted. Welcome, Ted, to the show, man, this evening, man. First time, man. Yeah, he say true that. If you're a sucker, you're good. But stop being a sucker. You're considered a buster. I hear you, Ted. I hear you. I hear you, my brother. So, yeah, we're talking about it this evening. We're talking about it this evening. If women are using, some women, let me emphasize that. I always say some women are still using this language. Or if you have used this language before and you no longer use it, then I applaud you. But for those who are still pushing this narrative or attempting to push this narrative that men are not, they ain't sugar, honey, iced tea. Like I said, you break it down, then I'm suggesting then you take a look in the mirror, especially if you the one that raised the child. And if you raised a son, I'm just simply asking the question, do that make your son the exception? Because when it comes to our own, there's this tendency to say, well, not my child though. Everybody but my child. I don't roll like that. I don't roll like that. Just like if my son or even my great nephew, yes, you get something happen at the school or whatever, and you talking about what the teacher did. What did you do? What did you do? Because we're quick to tell a story about what happened to us, but we ain't too sharp or quick to say our part that we displayed or what we did to cause the situation anyway. So yes, I'm not one of those individuals like, this situation happened. I'm not gonna look at my child first. Cause no, I don't go with that narrative. I don't go with that narrative, Tim.
Well, think about it. If women, because there's so many women that speak about their spirituality and speak about manifestation, right? So we got this great understanding. We're supposed to have this great understanding what manifestation is. So if you say to the universe that men ain't shit, excuse my words, SHIT, then you're saying that the men that come in your life, this is what the universe hears, and it gives you back, are not going to be worth anything. So all the men in your life is going to be that. You manifested that in your life. We trying to help you. We trying to, like I said, correct you so we can protect you, right? So as we correcting and protecting, you got to protect yourself by using your words wisely. Because what you do, you bringing forth all the men that ain't worth nothing. And then you wonder why you can't discern nothing, because actually you ain't got nothing to choose, because the universe said, I'm going to bring you all the men that ain't worth nothing. And you're going to have no choice to choose in between a good man. A good man ain't coming to you, because that's what a good man does. See, if I hear you say that, I'm not coming to you. I'm not going to find you, because I already know that you don't value you. Let me give you a story about valuation. Good men value themselves. But I'm going to say this real quick. There was a professor. He came into the classroom. He put out a $20 bill. He said, "Who wants this $20 bill?" Everybody raised their hand. He crumbled the $20 bill up. He said, "Who wants this $20 bill?" Everybody still raised their hand. He took that $20 bill and he threw it on the ground and he stumped it and he grinded on it. He said, who wants this $20 bill? Everybody still raised their hand and want that $20 bill. So no matter how much you crumble, so no matter how many times people step on you, if you know your value, no matter how time life squeezes you, it actually makes things tough for you. But if you know your value, you still know you got value, right? And so no matter how many times women are out there saying that, men are kicking back and said, hey, we know we got value. And guess what? There are women that are actually now coming back and said, hey, I know men got value, because what? I know men who got value. I got uncles. I got a man. I got cousins. I got a father. I got people I know. I got a brother. They valuable. Okay. So no, that narrative is wrong. Y'all are the ones who actually got the problem, and you keep manifesting in your life. Stop manifesting bad things in your life. Start to see what you want to desire. If you want a good man, start to learn what a good man looks like. And then you will start to know what to do, and then you will actually treat him right. Because if you don't know how to treat a good man right, he will not be a good man for you. He'll be a good man for somebody else.
Right. It's kind of like the sister was talking about on the deal when she said that, a lot of women pray for a good man, but at the same time, God is really preparing you. He's really preparing you. And when your disposition is not right and you got some house cleaning to do, you won't get, because it's about the energy, right? It's the energy that you put out and the energy that you bring in. So how can you get the good man? You're not even ready because you still harboring on something that happened 10, 15, 20 years ago. This is the difficulty in it. That's the reason why I say the language that some women use has to be checked, because again, that's not all men, just like it's not all women. And these numbers again are just continuing to escalate. And so I think it's very important for us to recognize those things and just look at it, take it head on, and deal with the situation, because it's not getting any better. It's not getting any better, man. And again, and that works on both sides, because even with men who've been in hurt relationships, whatever the case may be, popular to belief or with the man or whatever, men get hurt as well in relationships, and then they take their frustration or anger out on the next woman or whatever, and never give her an opportunity or a chance. So it happens both ways. But what we're trying to establish now, when we start using this kind of language, that a woman, that's why I say I hate the words like bitch. I never, I've always disliked that word, man. I hate that word. You know what I'm saying? Because that's not who that person is. And if you can say that about the mother of your children, what do that really say about you? No matter how angry and upset you get, you have to take certain things into consideration. You have to be able to say, you know what? Even if that's how I'm feeling, I have to restrain myself. If nothing else, I have to do it for my children. Because we made this individual or that individual, these individuals out of love, right? That's how it was first developed. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I say you can always go back, even if you have a different of agreement, you can't be together anymore. You can always go back to whatever good memories that you have, because it couldn't be all bad. Even if the bad outweighed the good, there was still some good somewhere, right?
Mhm.
And if you choose to look at that and give that the priority and attach yourself to that, then I think it makes you a better overall person, that you can get on with your life and become the best human being possible that God desire you to be. And that's what's more important than anything. You can't let someone rob you or steal you of your happiness. And far too many times, this is exactly what happened when we don't change the narrative, when we start using these epithets and all this stuff, and we placing them on, whether if it's the father or the mother, whatever the case may be. But again, we dealt with the numbers, and the numbers says that there are more single mothers who take the children, right? And they're raising the boys, they're raising the girls. They have them. So when he go out there into the world, now I hear you. I hear some of y'all saying, "Well, that's just, I gave him, the proper foundation, right? He went out there and he just became this reprobated mind, like they say, the prodigal son or whatever, right? And he took on the world's view and so forth. We understand those things happen, because those things to me are the exception, though. They're not the rule, they are the exception. Because I can tell you, there are so many, just like you said, there are so many guys who do compare women to their mothers. If they mother set that foundation, the proper foundation, even if he go a little bit astray, I can rest assure you, if he have any type of consciousness, any type of self-respect, any kind of memory, I guarantee you, he's gonna look back at his mom first and say, you know what? I can't, this is not the best of me. And I'm not presenting the best of me, I'm presenting the worst of me. And he's gonna have a reflection on himself. And he's gonna want to try to turn that around and get back to what it is that his mother uh 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 uh, instilled in him over a period of time, because we understand young boys' minds are not fully developed until the age of 25. We know young women minds are developed a little bit more fast, a little bit more sooner. So it takes us a little bit longer to get there. But through patience, we can get there. The problem is we don't want to be patient a lot of time. We don't want to be patient with one another, because everybody want what they want when they want it. But again, the narrative that we have to change and push back on this particular episode that I'm talking about, again, if a man ain't SHIT, then what do that make the teacher? Because you can't charge the student and let the teacher get away free. Who taught him that? And even if you say, well, again, the world took him on, or whatever the case may be, I'm still gonna say, well, did you not check in? That's why I don't understand. They always talk about when one young white guy go down, he don't build a bomb in the basement of his mother's house. I said, you can't build no bomb in a black woman's house. Cause I remember, and I laugh at this to this day. I remember I was reading some information. If anybody know my mother is an evangelist. She's an evangelist teacher, and and so when you get into black nationalism, it can take you down through there a little bit. You don't want to stay in the dark hole. But this was in my younger days, so she didn't really know. But what was funny to me was, in my younger days, my college days, I was at the house. So I would come to the house, and she just kicked the door open. What you doing here? She thought I was on some Charles Manson type stuff from the books and stuff that I was reading, because she hadn't heard these books like Anacalyptus and the 100 Lynching of Lynchburg and all this. And I had went into this militant type thing. You know what I'm saying? So, but I was going through my spiritual journey, and I was processing, right. And I remember when she came in the door, man, I turned around because it kind of startled me, because she just wanted to know. So I'm saying you can't get away with that in a black woman house. So when she closed the door, I couldn't do. I'm turn around and start laughing. She put a smile on my face, man, because I say that's my mother. That's my mother. And if any of y'all you ever met my mother, you would know my mother. So I'm saying I've lived by that mantra. I've lived by that blueprint. Like in my dating life or whatever the case may be, I've always had that. If my mom, if my mom said, and not that she ever said a lot of anything like that, that's one thing I can say about it. But if she ever mentioned anything, I would always reflect on what it is that she said. Because I felt like she wouldn't tell me anything. She raised me, she know me, she wouldn't tell me anything. She wouldn't do it out of spitefulness either. Because she knows she's a praying woman, so she knows the spirit of a person, right? Because she gave me my foundation. So yes, I'm gonna take a look at that. Now I'll make my own decisions as a grown man now, but I'm saying back then, as I was processing, evolving, these are the kind of things that you had to deal with as a young man. So again, we have to have, like I said, those old mothers, those mothers that walked around probably with the house shoes on, with the long dresses on, cooking in the kitchen. You know what I mean? But now you got all this grandmama stuff going on, right? So things are left unchecked. And herein lies the problem. So now you get the young girls, they on here now, and it seems like it's cycling back around. And I'm hearing the language a lot, how a man ain't this, a man ain't that. And I'm saying, no, that's the dudes you met. Those are the dudes that you know. Quit trying to paint everything with a broad brush and take a look in the mirror and quit making poor choices. You know what I'm saying? Quit being so left, with all this syntheticness. And let me see somebody. Cause let me see. My man Ted said at the end of the day, it's something materialistic. Not the heat. Yeah, something materialistic. You too much on the fleshly part of this thing. Too much on the fleshly part of this thing, man. And that's the narrative that we have to change and push back. Because you got to look and find for the quality in individuals, man, and not the worst of the individuals, Tim.
Yeah. So when we think about what you said a little bit earlier, it just reflects and actually goes right along what we're talking about. Where you spend the most energy, right? You put the most time in, is what comes to matter. That's what actually materializes. So if your attention is on negative things about your man, your ex, or whatever it is, about the father, and you actually speak that into existence, and you spend a lot of time with your mindset, you're not cultivating a relationship that's going to work. You're cultivating something that's going to fail. And you actually teaching it to your children and those around you and the people that's around you too. So now you cultivating a negative energy around you. So you creating this force field of negativeness that goes towards the other parent. Any parent that does that, whether it's male or female, any parent that actually does that or creating that energy for that. And so we always got to be careful of our mindset, because it's a mindset change that we need. We need to change our mindset, how we thinking about things. It's funny, you was talking about your mother. My mother used to tell me 3 things more than anything else. She said these 3 things. One, she said, never lay down with a woman you wouldn't marry. Okay. So that makes me have to have discernment when actually I'm choosing, right? And so, I think I've done all right, but I could have done better, right? So I keep working on it, become better and better, because she always told me to keep improving as well. She also told me not to take any wood nickels, right?
Right.
So, and that comes back, back in the days where they was giving. And that goes back to
Right.
talking about $5, Indians and all that kind of stuff, and actually giving them wood nickels when it wasn't worth nothing, right?
Right. Right.
Or land that wasn't worth anything too, gave them the worst land, right? They did that with black people too. Worst land. They say, okay, you can have that. The one that's all flooded out, the water rains and it don't drain, we'll give you that land. Okay. And then we still made something out of it. That's a whole nother story. And then she told me this also, and this is one I've actually talked to many other people. Excuses are tools that incompetent people choose to build monuments of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
she's telling you that, hey, excuses are not any good. So we need to stop making excuses why something doesn't work. Let's start working on the tools that does make them work. And one of the things that make it work is actually focus on what would make it work. What are the tools? What are the things that would make that relationship work with the father, with the mother? Think about those things and start exercising and then implementing those things into your life. And that will be some of the tools that'll make that relationship work. I know a lot of people don't know these type of things. So that's why we're here. We're here to help you, protect you, right? And correct you and protect you, so you can start making discernment and start using things that actually make our community stronger. Because we continue down the path we're doing, we are not only going to destroy our children, we're going to destroy our communities. And we're not going to have that. Me and Jabril, we ain't going for that. You ain't gonna destroy our community. We're gonna build our community. We're gonna build them up and we're gonna make them stronger because we want you to focus on things that make it better. Put your time, your energy, and it will matter what happens going forward. You will manifest the right things.
Yeah, and I think also, Tim, and I know we're coming up on another about 15. Wow, this time went by fast. Wow. We got about another 15 minutes on this particular episode right here, but I want to play something right quick based on the conversation why I think sometimes the wires get crossed and the narrative begin to change because the conversation between some men and some women become diluted because we're not listening to one another, right? And this is the cause and the effect of these relationships. I'm gonna play this clip right here and just check out this conversation right here.
Because you're not hearing your woman out, or because a woman is telling you what to do. All of us came from a woman. So when I'm hearing Anton speak, which I'm not just keep trying to relate to him, he came from a woman as well. So it's like, are you telling me you never listened to your mom growing up? Because you're saying that a man don't listen to a woman, like that make you less of a man. I'm just confused. So that's why I was just like, Dallas was right. And I just didn't want to say anything because I'm still confused on the first conversation, and I haven't got past that yet.
You come from a man. You come from your daddy's balls. Your woman, the mama is just the egg.
Your mom delivered you. You came from a woman. Your dad did not give birth to you. Your mother.
Your mom was just an incubator. You come from your father. That's where you come from. I don't know. Listen, I can't speak to your personal situation, although you did mention it. I'm not going to speak to your personal situation, but let me help you to understand something. The dudes that came before us, and again, this has nothing to do with you, was simps. They were weak. They said, I'm not talking about you.
Okay, well, I want to clear that up because my dad wasn't a simp.
Didn't I? Oh, you're not a good listener, right?
I'm a great listener because this is my first time. This is my first time saying anything back to you. I listened to you earlier and didn't even know.
I prefaced the conversation twice by saying that I was not referring to you specifically. And then you went to go on about how it is that this is represented. This ain't about you. This is about life.
And I said I wanted to make that clear that my father was not a simp. It's the same thing you were doing with people earlier. You don't like when somebody do something that you do. You were doing this to people earlier when they were speaking. All I'm saying to you is my father is not a simp. That's not an argument. My father is not a simp. That's all I was saying.
And how would you know?
I know for a fact my father is not a simp. My father is very intelligent, and my father is
what do being intelligent got to do with being a simp?
It doesn't matter. He wasn't a simp.
How do you know?
We're going to leave it at that. And I'm not going to allow you to say my father's a simp because he's not.
I never said that he was. But see,
but you just said, how do I know that?
He never called your father a simp.
No. Hold on, Mr. Lego. Let me cook. You know how I know that your father was possibly a simp?
He was not a simp.
Do you know how I know your father was possibly a simp? Because you automatically triggered by it and nobody called him a simp.
I'm triggered by it because my father was a great man, and I don't allow nobody to talk crazy about my father.
Nobody mentioned your father. Nobody mentioned your father. Did anybody mention your father?
Do you have a daughter?
Did anybody mention your father?
Do you have a daughter?
I do.
Okay. If your daughter was sitting on this panel, you would want your daughter to speak highly of you as well. I'm not going to allow nobody to ask my dad.
If nobody asked about me,
period, he's not a simp.
If nobody asked about me, see, are you married?
I'm not married, but
I know you're not fucking married.
You don't know that I'm not married.
I do know because I can tell by that badass attitude. Listen, you already about to snatch dreams out the air. You're shaking your head. You're talking with your neck and shit. You're mentioning shit that nobody even ever brought up. I never brought up your fucking father. Not once. As a matter of fact, I made sure that you knew. Wait a second. If you be quiet for long enough to let somebody actually talk, you don't have to respond to something that I didn't even say. If you just be quiet for 5 seconds, you will understand the sentiment, and then you probably could get married. You would not be impacted by all of these fucking stories that you heard inside of your salon.
You know what's crazy? You are judging me when you don't even know me.
Since you let him
you don't even know me.
Hold on, y'all.
Rashawn, don't cape, Rashawn.
No, wait.
Stop.
He's the only person on this
I don't have to know you if I ask you a specific question.
I'm not married. I've been engaged 3 times.
I guarantee you I heard that 1,000 times from a bunch of chicks that was masculine as fuck.
But you just said that if I listen, I will be married.
Yeah, because you ain't quiet enough to actually
understand. Single women saying I've been engaged.
This is what I guarantee you. I guarantee you, after this show, you're gonna have a life reality check. Because it's not gonna sit well with you. And the reason it's not gonna sit well with you is because you're wrong as fuck. You over talking after you said that you don't over talk. You led with that fake ass femininity when you first came on the panel. I don't over talk. I don't even respond. Now look at you. You ain't out of character. This is who you fucking really are. And all I did was bring it out of you. See, the unique thing about me is that if you sit around me long enough, I'm gonna bring that bullshit up out of you. And you can't sit here and sell me something that ain't real. I knew you wasn't fucking married. And now, because of your behavior, not because of your father, but because of your behavior, I'm questioning whether or not your father is a simp. And the reason I'm questioning whether or not your father is a simp is because there's no way that a dude that's not a simp, daughter is gonna be on here talking that bullshit, leading with that fake ass femininity, and then gonna come on here trying to talk to me like you know what the fuck is going. I don't think you really knew what you was getting yourself into. Because I'm not the one. I'm gonna tell you the fucking truth. I'm not here to sugarcoat. I'm not trying to get on your good side.
Okay, y'all. I just wanted to play that last clip for this evening, and just to kind of bring us, into some enlightenment regarding how this ties all the way back into children and so forth. And if a man is not this or that, how that conversation was broke. If I replayed that clip, the man never called her father a simp. Nowhere. He was making an analogy about something, and she heard or thought that he called her father simp. But he never called her father simp. But this is how conversations breaks down, and then people want to overtalk one another. And then the worst thing about it is you have a male dominant presence, and here come the XX chromosomes that's inclining upward to be XY now, to become dominant. No man in that position is going to allow that to happen, because he understands the nature in which God created him. And herein lies the problem. So again, when we talk about men, or some men, or some women making this statement regarding men being not, they ain't sugar, honey, iced tea, we have to remember something. If you have the mindset of like the young lady in this particular video, if that's your disposition, and you're making impulsive statements, or having a impulsive reaction or something, whatever, is not even a reality, that can possibly be the reason why these children are continuing to suffer, and you're continuing to suffer in these relationships that you choose to get into. And when they don't work out, you start to develop your own vocabulary based on the experiences of their relationship, and you lose all rational thinking as it relates to the father and the child. And so no, just say that, personally, you just have to let that father and that child, whether if that child is a male or a female, let them connect regardless of what happened. Now, again, I know Lolita, she stated earlier that she didn't, that wasn't her. And I know a plethora of women had carried the same disposition. I know my mom definitely was one. She never came between me and my father. I know many other of my friends the same way. And I think, Tim, I don't know, you can't speak personally to your situation with your father. I know how close you and your father are now. And so this is so important. So ladies, all I'm just trying to say here this evening to some of the women, not all, again, I want to stress that, because some women actually absolutely get what I'm talking about. They don't try to come between. In fact, they'll help the child pack their bags to the door to get to their father. So I know there are a lot of women that are like that too. But we have to just make sure that with these younger people, the younger generation, that we have to pay it forward, right? Just like the generation behind us paid it forward. We got to pay it forward for these young people and let them know, sweetheart, that's not the way. Don't say that. And teach them and educate them and have the correct foundation and the correct knowledge that you want to pour into them, and not some emotional episode that you want to give them because it did not work out between you and the father. And to the guys, I'm going to tell you the same exact thing. I think you're a weak individual. I think you're a weak-minded person if you allow a woman to push you out of your child's life and you accept that. You accept that. No, I don't know if a lot of people don't even notice that when you do get a divorce as men, we have rights too now, more so than we've ever had. That you can actually go down there and get custody of your child or split custody, whatever the case may be. Now, me personally, I always try to say, because women are the first teaching. If they're young, no, let the mother, have the foundation because she's the first teacher. But I know when I went through a divorce, I said, I'm coming to get my son. He's 27 now. At 13, adolescence, that was always going to be my disposition. I got to have him because you can't pour into him. You can do the best you can as a woman, but you can't give him what God has put in me to give to him. You can't do it. So don't try to do it. You women, you've done enough. If you get him to that adolescent stage and you know that man is there in his life and he's definitely he's been assertive, then let him do what he got to do and trust. Let go and trust God. Go ahead, Tim.
Whew. You said a lot right there, because a lot of times, even when you do that, some women will try to be a safe haven for that child, and then don't allow that child to be disciplined. Kind of like I told you about the butterfly a little bit earlier.
Sure.
And then in the conversation that they just had, they was going over semantics and all that, but more than anything else, it came right back to what I started out the show with. Self-discipline begins with the mastery, okay? The mastery of your thoughts. And so many times people miss this. They're not catching, they're not listening to me right here. The mastery of your thoughts. Self-discipline starts with the mastery of your thoughts. So if she had reflected and listened for a little while, let him finish out so she can let him finish, so then she could gather thoughts, not just listening to respond, but listening to actually educate herself on whatever else he's talking about. They could have had a conversation that actually didn't deal with them getting emotional and having emotional diatribe back and forth, right? Because if you don't control what you think, you can't control what you do. So then that's what I'm talking about. Now you're all emotional, and then you have all this stuff where they didn't progress, they did not move forward. We did not learn anything about what he was going to say. And then she don't get a chance to hear him clearly say all the things he wants to say because she was triggered by some pain that she had within her. So she was triggered by that, by what he said, and couldn't be patient enough to wait till he finished to go ahead and actually have a different perspective. See, she could have had a conversation as a different perspective. That's not to say she didn't have anything to say. She could have spoke from a different perspective, but she did not need to get emotional and start one that actually dealt on people not respecting each other in their space and time. So
what they say, listening is an art. Yeah.
When we put our energy in, when we put our time in, it ended up materializing. She materialized an argument. It became an argument.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, we're coming up on the last 5 minutes, and I want to get something in right quick. I know we've been off the air for the last 3 weeks. Really been diving into some new things. I think some of y'all have seen the promo I put out regarding the replay, and that's the sports show that we're doing, as well as the it deals with a lot of things going on still within the community, our cultural perspective and everything like that. So we had to get into that. So I got one more episode. Kind of feel a little bit of melancholy talking about metaphors of love, because we've been doing this since July of last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, July of last year. So Tim and I talked about it, man, with other my producer on the other show that we're about to get, and we're embarking on with that. I still have the Blac-Vocracy one mic that I'll be putting up pre-recorded. But next week, God willing, will be the last episode of Metaphors of Love. Are we listening? But don't despair, because it's not to say it's gonna be gone forever. I just think that we need a little break in between, and so I just want to put that on your mind. So I want y'all to join us for that episode next week before we go into a little bit of hiatus for a minute. But I can tell y'all, I'll probably just wait till next week anyway. But I just want to kind of prep y'all for that, because man, we've had a lot of great conversations, a lot of songs that I was able to play, a lot of memories to reminisce on. Let me see here. I got to give us this right here. Hold on just a second, right? I got to give us this one right here, because I played this one time before. We did a show on it, and I want to play it again because it has such a deep meaning, so to speak. Every time I hear this song right here, if I can bring it up, or it won't let me bring it up, but I'll get in just a second.
Walk with me.
This song here is by the Four Tops. It's called Still Water Run Deep. Still, no matter what happens, still water's gonna always run deep because we're creating 75% of water, just like relationships. Relationships gonna still run deep. We still a strong people, still a strong community. And when we know better, we do better. So I wanna go out on this song right here. Still waters run deep.
Never you lie, live by. Don't pain passing by. If I don't brag or boast, click my glass and stay toast. Along my love, I will run through. And it's so
So yes, y'all, I just want to let y'all know that still waters run deep. Give up hope. Relationships, no matter how it looks, God is always in it. God would always have the last say so if it's something that you really truly want. Trust God. Don't let it fall up in your mind. We have the right, the autonomy to take it back and change the narrative no matter what they say about our community. We can do that. We can do that. We have to keep God first, to keep God out front. We have to do it with excellence. There's no other way around it. So again, y'all, this is episode 54, and I hope that we get some justice this evening with this particular topic. And I hope that we can teach our young girls, our nieces, and our cousins, and our granddaughters and daughters and what have you. You know, that's not a good way to describe the black man, and I would hope that the black man will understand and teach his grandson or grandson or nephew, or whatever the case may be. That's not the best language to use to describe this black woman. We're put all of this together, and I think Donna said it earlier, you know, you got to have both parents. I think that's very, very important. We got to get those numbers going up instead of down. That's so important. So again, I want to thank each and every one of y'all for coming on this evening. We'll be back for the last episode for this particular quarter, and we'll try to pick this thing back up, hopefully around about Thanksgiving. But until then, God bless. You know, stay safe out there. The weather's starting to change. I know y'all like that a little bit. You can start getting ready to pull out your hoodies and your jackets and all this other stuff. So that's a wonderful thing. God is definitely merciful. So I'm your host, Shaw. That's my co-host, Tim Jackson. Y'all gonna see us on the replay. Join us if you haven't hit the subscribe button. Please go do that. We're gonna have a lot of fun. And we're gonna be bringing kids onto the show, y'all. Yes, I got a little surprise.
Before Shopify, were you wondering where my sales at?
So I just
now you're selling with Shopify,
like the
global commerce platform
You
supercharging
know,
your
we
selling.
here.
You have no problem selling online, in person.
So we all got to
on
put
social
our
media
hats in the
Very
ring and do what we
easy
got
on
to do.
the cha-ching.
All right. So until the next time, next week, y'all come on back next week and let's do this thing
Start
again.
selling with Shopify today and discover how millions of businesses around the world use Shopify to ignite their selling.
And we'll sign
Start your
off.
free trial today at shopify.com/Spotify. Shopify.com/Spotify.
This time, it's looking
to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. But
so remember to love you. That's where it starts. That way everybody else will start to learn to love themselves as well. And then you can love throughout. The beauty comes from within, not without. It comes from within. So let's keep that beauty and actually give it out to the world.
Give it out.
No.
Right on. Well, again, don't y'all forget to subscribe, like, and share. And we'll see y'all next week. Stay safe. God bless and keep God first.